Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to grow your business and take your business or your life to the next level. Today, I'm very excited to have Farah Flischer on as a guest. And let me tell you a lot about Farah because she's got a great bio. Farah, who is Farsi, is it Parsi?
Farsi, yeah.
Parsi origin, born in London, but raised in North India, where she was educated at a Catholic convent in a historic Muslim city surrounded by Hindu mythology. She is a British national with an Indian heart. She has embraced the different facets of her identity and considers herself a citizen of the world with the ability to straddle different cultures and geographies with ease. She works in the banking industry, where she started as a trainee aged 18 in London, having built her career over a span of 30 plus years across continents. In her personal life, following the uniquely untimely loss of her mother, Farah, struggling to reconcile the mysteries of life and death, embarked on an inward quest to find the strength to overcome the traumatic family tragedy and other significant life challenges. Through self-healing practices, ranging from baking to yoga, Farah has been able to find a positive conduit to channel her loss and pain, finally arriving at a place of equanimity. Farah is based in Dubai, where she has lived for the last 2 decades. She has 2 adult children who are embarking on their life journeys. In her spare time, Farah is an avid baker and dreams of owning a cafe one day. Her other passion is yoga, and she can often be found on the mat at a class across Dubai. Our theme for today is how life lessons can teach us to overcome tragedy. Please join me in welcoming Farah Flischer. Hello, Farah. I just love the beginning of how you have been so many different cultures in your life and really in a short time too. I just think that you bring so much to a conversation when you have this breadth of experience and exposure to different ways of life. So I'm so excited to hear what you have to say today.
Thank you, Vicki, and thank you for hosting me, and hello to all your listeners. And I was listening to you say it, and it sounded like a mouthful, but it is true. It gives you a very different perspective and a different lens on life when you've been exposed to just a very varied upbringing with different influences.
So very true. Well, we gave away the easy question that I have for you as to where you live in Dubai. So we'll have to skip that one. But it's what is life like in Dubai these days?
Wow, it's heating up. I have to say it's hitting the 40s, so it's a little bit warm. We're entering the summer, so it's not going to be a bundle of fun for the next few months, but anytime after October, it's glorious and it's lovely. Yeah. It's fast paced, as I'm sure everyone can imagine. but it's been a great home to me and my children. And I've been here 22 years, as you said, 2 decades. So Dubai is definitely home and my base, but I'm equally at home in India and I'm equally at home in London. So home is movable, shall we say? It shifts.
You still
Yeah.
have a lovely London accent, though.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, as we mentioned, you have a very impressive cross-cultural background. You have been born in London, you were raised in North India, and as we said, you had those different influences of religion. How did you embrace those different facets of your identity? And you talked about considering yourself a citizen of the world. And so, why do you do that? Why do you feel that way?
It's a really interesting question. I think it's very easy if you go online to fill out a form. We're categorized by ethnicity or by the country of origin or by our religion. And I always have to take other because I don't conform. And that's absolutely okay. We can be the sum of our parts. We don't have to be any one particular kind of person, ethnicity, or means nationality is your passport, and that's all well and good, but that doesn't define who I am in its entirety. So, yes, I carry my British passport, but I speak Hindi. I'm at home in India. I'm equally at home in Dubai. And it's about the sort of assimilation of all these experiences. And as you get older, I think you get more comfortable in your skin and you're okay to say, this is me. I may not be, pure any one thing, but I am who I am through the combination of my experiences. And you embrace that difference and you embrace that point of view. And then you're quite proud to say, I'm a citizen of the world because you can relate to people at different levels and you can relate to multiple points of view because you've either experienced it or you've been, submerged in that culture to understand a different point of view. So I think
true.
I just think, and especially with time and with age and with experience, you become a little bit more comfortable in who you are.
Absolutely. And I used to I'm from Pittsburgh. So if you're at all familiar with Pittsburgh, we used to be the home of Heinz ketchup.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it was Heinz 57. So I don't have near as many cultural background things as you, but I have a lot of different things, not just one country that my grandparents were part of. And so we used to say that we were Heinz 57 kids.
Well, there you go. That's an
Yeah,
identity.
there you
There you
go.
go.
But I think you do, as I mentioned earlier, I think when you allow yourselves to be immersed in these different cultures, it really makes you so much more interesting, rich. And I think the appreciation that you have makes you be able to be a better communicator whenever you're talking with these different people that you meet, the diverse world that we live in.
I think it definitely allows you to have an appreciation for different points of view. There's no one right point of view from a particular perspective because everyone comes at things from a combination of their education, their environment, how they've been brought up, and they might think they're completely correct, but so does the other person who's had a very different upbringing. So when one has seen both sides, then you can be more receptive to differing points of view and you can potentially disagree without being disagreeable.
Right. Excellent. So part of your story, as we said earlier, is somewhat sad and tragic. And so I want you to go back to February 28th, 2006, and that day that is forever imprinted in your mind and your heart. Please share the story about that day and the phone call that shook your world.
As you say, it's a sad part of the story. It's the heart of the story. It's my relationship with my mother. So February 28th was pretty much a normal day. It started off as a normal day. I went to the office, I came back home. My two young kids, sort of gave them, we had dinner, gave them a bath, read them a story, tucked them into bed, went to bed myself. My husband was out of town, and because he had traveled for work, I'd left the ringer on my phone on just in case he needed to reach me, or just in case. Um, Went to bed, and my phone rang in the middle of the night. And when I looked, at the time it was sort of 2 in the morning, and I picked up the phone, and it was my stepfather on the phone, and his voice was shaking, and I was groggy. I'd just been pulled out of a deep sleep, and I was like, "Is everything okay?" And his voice was shaking, and he said, "Your mother's been shot, and you need to come home immediately." And so you sort of put the phone down, you're processing what's been said, not quite able to comprehend. And as I mentioned, my husband was out of town, so I couldn't go back to sleep, as anyone can imagine. Stayed up till, say, a reasonable time, 6 a.m., called him, said, "Can you come home?" So I could leave the kids with him so I could travel. Booked a flight to leave, and the earliest flight was later that evening that allowed him to come back and me to leave. I got dressed up. I sort of operated on autopilot, because I didn't know any different. I was just like, okay, I've got to go into the office, got to hand in my work, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how long I was going for. So I went into the office, handed in my work, had a great boss, explained the basics of what I knew, and just said I need to take leave, emergency leave. I'm not quite sure how long I'll be gone for. And then through the day, I sort of stayed in the office for a little bit, and the calls were coming in. I think what no one said to me at the time was no one expected mom to survive the gunshot. But in my head, I don't think I was there yet. In my head, there was an injury, there was an incident, and I needed to get to my mother, but I wasn't contemplating her mortality at this particular point in time. And so everyone could see there was a flurry of activity around me. And my boss's secretary said, "Farah, what's going on?" And I sort of shared with her. I said, "It's all on the internet." So she went to the internet and started reading some of the headlines that were coming out. And she's like, "This is like a really, really bad movie script, that someone's written," because it was just so out of the ordinary. So that was how the incident was shared with me, and how I dealt with it on that particular day.
So whenever you got that news and then you flew to home, arrive at the hospital, and then what happened? I mean, you said you were kind of going on autopilot. At what point did it start to strike you that things were not going to go as you had hoped?
So, as you said, I get to the hospital. So my mother, the incident had occurred in our hometown, which is Lucknow. Lucknow wasn't equipped, the hospital wasn't equipped to deal with her injuries. So she was airlifted to Delhi, which is the capital of India. So I flew into Delhi, and I went straight to the hospital. And up until that point, it had been autopilot, the journey, getting through immigration, collect your bag, get in a car, get to the hospital. And then when I arrived at the hospital, I was greeted by my stepfather, who, had spent the whole night in the hospital, had flown, was clearly, harrowed. And as I entered, there was the whispering, the friends and the relatives who were there were all subdued and whispering. And there were the tears, and there were people coming out to hug me and, saying, sort of not condoling, but almost trying to comfort me and prepare me for the inevitable. And there were the doctors looking very grim and somber. And then my mother was in the intensive care unit. So by the time you've scrubbed and put on the gown and put on the shoe covers and your gloves and your hair cap, and you walk in, and that's kind of when it hits you, because up until that point, I didn't have a visual. I didn't have a visual reference at all of what to expect. And that, I think, is when, it just sort of slams into you that this is very real and really, really serious.
Yeah. And I think that, I know whenever I had my mom have an incident where I wasn't sure what was going on. Your heart starts to ache, but it's almost, and I don't know if it's the mother instinct in us, but I was trying to always think, how can I fix this? And I wonder if that went through your mind as you're looking at her in that state that she was in. What can you do? Or, how good
How
are these
best?
doctors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there was, even the day before I flew, there was this debate. Is this the best hospital? Do we have the best
Yeah.
doctors? Is this the best town? Is this the best course of action to take for her? And then, your listeners will see through the journey and the story that mom survived for a period of time, and sort of started improving. And part of me was like, okay, if she comes out, she's going to need physiotherapy, then I need a flat, and the flat has to have a ramp, and she wouldn't be able to climb stairs. So, as you say, that fix it part of you, or the solution part of you, kicks in, and you're like, how do I make good of this situation that we find ourselves in, and how can I help, just ease the way, if you like, for whatever's to come.
And I don't know that we talked about, but your relationship with your stepfather, was it one that you felt closeness enough to him to try to console him, or how was that situation?
So our relationship wasn't, we weren't very close with me
Mhm.
growing up. But I think in that moment, you put all differences aside, because
Mhm.
everyone's sort of pulling for the same outcome. Everyone's rooting for mom to survive. Everyone's trying to rally everyone for her to get better. I think the differences, the fundamental differences would always stay, but that shared anguish, shared sort of pain at what had happened, and the shared desire for her to get better, sort of definitely mellowed the relationship for a period of time.
So how long did your mom stay with us before?
So she was in hospital for 25 days, and then on the 24th day, there was a internal bleeding, and they couldn't identify the source. Um, and then she just started slipping away. And we did the endoscopy, and we tried to identify the source, but it
Yeah.
just wasn't found. And then she slipped away.
And so she was shot. Did you have to go through trial and things like that for the person who shot her? Did you have that additional anguish and stress?
Not at the time. So at the time that she was in hospital, they hadn't yet caught the individuals, but the police were out there seeking to catch them. So that came subsequent to her passing, that chapter of
Mhm.
finding the individuals and bringing them to justice.
So that's interesting because you go through all this pain in that moment, and now when trial does happen, you have to re-engage all those feelings again.
Correct. Yeah. It is not easy, and it is hard. But there was a lot of pressure on the police to
Mhm.
bring the perpetrators to justice and find them, because they had absconded, then run away, and the news was breaking across the wires everywhere. So the police were definitely out looking for them. But that sort of came after we had passed the 25-day mark and mom had passed.
So, as I was reading your bio, you shared that your mom used to say, "We choose our lives for the lessons we learn." I'll say that again because I think it's a great quote. We choose our lives for the lessons we learn. Um, you said you struggled with that, but have you been able to overcome the hardship, the loss, the heartache, and emerge stronger from this horrible experience that you lived through?
So while I was growing up, if there was anything that I was struggling with, even if I was mad at my mom, she was like, "Remember, you chose me. You chose this life." And we used to laugh about it and joke about it. And she would always try and remind me, if I was going through a challenge, that it's a lesson there to teach you, and you will come out stronger. And as again you get older, you look back and you gain more perspective on the sort of earlier part, your earlier years, and you look at it and you think, okay, I must have had that challenge to learn the lesson that I've learned that I can apply today and use in my life going forward. When mum passed, no amount of, people say things happen for a reason. I could not find any reason why something like this might have had to happen. But have I learned tools, or have I gained a perspective on grief? Have I learned to be able to handle my emotions? Have I emerged a little bit stronger? For sure. I would say for sure. Would I have wanted it to happen this way? Absolutely not. But I think we all learn from whatever we encounter. And if you think about it, life comes at everyone. It's not like anyone has it easy. It could be a different kind of challenge, whether it's health related or finance related or relationship related. There's always a challenge, and we're trying to find the way to live our life and be true to who we are and what we believe we want to be in this world. And I think hence I come back to what she said, and I think, okay, there's truth in it, because we're all learning from the challenges we encounter. And maybe we did choose this particular life with this particular challenge to teach us what we're learning to make us the people we are today. So yeah, definitely absorb the wisdom in that statement and hopefully embody some of that in who I am today.
And these lessons you learned, also you had small children then. How has this experience affected them, and how have you been able to help them through the tragedy as well?
So I think when it happened, because they were so young, they were shielded from everything that was going on. They were not exposed to, the press or the mayhem or the group. So they were, for them, it was the loss of a grandma, but they didn't have everything else associated with it. So it was the loss, but not the big incident, if you like. And they were very young. So it's only, again, as they've grown older that we've been able to talk about it. They've obviously read my manuscript, so they're aware. And many years ago, I did tell them about the actual incident, so they're aware. And as children in this day and age, they're never far from a computer and with access to news information, news wires. So it's easily accessible to them. So again, it was about putting it into perspective that this is not normal. This was not a normal incident. So it's not about normalizing it, but it's about helping them understand that their grandmother was standing up for something she believed in. So she was very, very brave and very courageous in the eye of personal adversity, right? And there was threat to life, and yet she stood her ground and stood for what she believed in. So it's about taking that lesson from it whilst making sure they're honoring the memory of their grandmother.
So in your book, you mentioned that it's difficult to accept that you could have chosen to have your mother shot, your father abandons you, or your stepfather rejects you. How did you deal with such displacement and fear of rejection? And have you come to terms with saying that your mother taught you a great lesson?
It's again about the sum of your parts. So I think part of my lesson, perhaps in this life that I appear to have chosen, is about independence and self-sufficiency and courage. And not having a father figure when I was much younger was quite distressing. And I recall, being a young child and crying over the loss or not having a father present. And I remember getting quite emotional if I ever had to say to someone, my parents are divorced, the words would stick in my throat a little bit. Mom's loss, again, out of my control. Nothing I could have done to change that outcome. And again, it's about finding your courage within. It's about finding your strength within, because I don't have a present father. My mother, who was my foundation, is no more. So it's about, again, who am I, and can I stand on my own and be my own foundation and find the strength within me to, just rely on myself to a lesser or greater degree. So I think it's definitely about sort of absorbing the lesson there is, finding the courage, finding the strength, finding the things that motivate me, finding the things that give me happiness, finding the things that give me joy and allow me to carry on without carrying the negative aspects of whatever might have happened in my childhood, because I don't need to be defined by that. That was part of my upbringing, but who I am today, back to some of my parts, those experiences have made me who I am today, and hopefully a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, a little bit grayer, but here I am today.
A much stronger, vibrant woman, I am sure. I kind of have a sense of that independence. So how is it in marriage being this strong, independent woman?
Well, your readers will get a taste of it in the book, because that unfortunately, that marriage also did not last the test of time, but that's unfortunate, and that's perhaps book 2. So maybe there's another story to tell.
There's a challenge for you. Yeah, for sure. And it is true, and it is sad that oftentimes strong women do not every man is able to cohabitate with a strong woman.
We'll be polite, Vicki. We'll be polite.
All right, it's time now for us to go ahead and share my screen so that you can get the information and learn more about how to get Farah's book. For those of you that are listening, as I remind you each time, you should have already had a pen and pencil to take notes throughout this wonderful conversation we had. But if you didn't, go grab a paper and pencil right now, or pen. I'm going to read the website for Farah. And as I always mention, the information will be on my YouTube site as well as my personal website. So findyourleadershipconfidence.com. The website is, I should have given you enough time to get that pencil. All right, here we go. https://www.farah, F-A-R-A-H, press, Press.com. That's farahpress.com. She is on Instagram, and that is farah.press. Again, on Instagram, it's farah.press. And I'm going to let Farah talk to you a little bit about her book and the chapter that she is going to be giving you for free if you go to farahpress.com. Go ahead.
Thanks, Vicki. So hopefully you all will have noted it down. Otherwise, if you have your phone, take a screenshot. That's what I tend to do if I don't have a pen and paper. So Farah Press, when you go on the website, you'll get access to resources and the photographs that are in the book as well. You'll see them in color. So hopefully it brings the book to life for you. You get the first chapter for free when you sign up. I invite anyone who's listening and who would like to share their stories with their mother-child. We all have stories, right? It's the most fundamental of our relationships. So would love to hear any feedback that you have. Very, very welcome. There's some recipes on the website and some books and other websites that I might have referred to as part of my journey that I'm sharing if you're interested, and just look forward to the engagement and hope to hear your feedback.
Would you remind everybody the name of the book?
Sure. So the name of the book is Meher and Me. My mother's name was Meher, so it's Meher and Me. It's a very personal biography and a memoir, and it pays homage to my mother, who was a force of nature and a very courageous lady. So I really hope you enjoy reading it.
So please, if you go to read that free chapter, please go and make comments back to Farah so that she can get insights, and encourage her to write that second book too. Okay?
Yeah, there's a story there for sure.
Well, it has been just wonderful hearing your story, as I knew it was going to be so interesting to hear. And I am so proud of how you have become this wonderful, independent woman. I look forward to reading more of your book and looking for that second book. We'll just have to have you back on when you have that second book out. But thank you so much for sharing your story. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.